public imagination is held captive by the missile silo, a 20th century threat vector. This is a calculated distraction. The kinetic cost of a launch-on-warning protocol is now an unacceptable liability. The new blueprint for systemic risk is not a launch sequence, it is a paralysis sequence. The primary weapon is silence. According to CSIS analysis, 97% of all global data and trillions in daily financial transactions travel through a handful of publicly mapped undersea cables. They are the central nervous system of the world economy. They are also profoundly vulnerable. The operational model is proven. The cyber attack that shut down servers at the AZ Monica Hospital in Belgium demonstrates the blueprint at a micro level, a non-kinetic event inducing total systemic failure. Now scale that paralysis to a continental level by severing data and blinding orbital assets simultaneously. This is the blind Leviathan scenario, a superpower with unmatched kinetic force, but its senses are severed. It cannot see, cannot communicate, cannot verify. This induced insolvency, a state of total informational bankruptcy, does not lead to surrender. It creates a mathematical certainty of escalation, where the nuclear option is no longer a last resort, but the final logical transaction. The official narrative is a distraction. The motive is not territory, it is solvency. Conventional warfare is a balance sheet calculation. Every tank, every soldier, is both a kinetic asset and a domestic liability. The pivot to asymmetry is triggered the moment that liability exceeds the asset. This is not a strategic choice. It is a declaration of strategic bankruptcy. CSIS analysis confirms this protocol. The high kinetic cost and domestic unpopularity of the Ukraine campaign transformed Russia's conventional military into a catastrophic financial liability. The state was no longer managing a war, it was managing a solvency crisis. When your primary leverage, kinetic force, becomes an economic accelerant against you, the math dictates a pivot. Weakness forces a shift to cheaper, deniable vectors. The objective is no longer to win on the battlefield, but to manufacture insolvency in the rival. A cyber attack on critical infrastructure, such as the one that shut down the AZ Monica Hospital in Belgium, demonstrates the blueprint. It creates systemic degradation at a fraction of the cost of a missile. It is a direct attack on a nation's operational liquidity. This playbook scales across all domains. Analysts warn that an economic shock, like a sudden collapse in oil prices following a potential Iran regime change, is a weapon to defund a rival state. Environmental disruption, which reports from Green Central Banking, confirm is accelerating, is no longer a passive threat, but an exploitable systemic weakness. The goal is to make the target state ungovernable, to render its conventional power irrelevant by bankrupting the system that supports it. The blueprint for modern warfare is no longer about winning on the battlefield. It is about bankrupting the opponent. The kinetic cost-benefit analysis has inverted. According to strategic analysis from institutes like RUSI, a state actor can field a main battle tank at a cost of approximately $5 million. The asymmetric counter is a first-person view drone costing $500. This is not a one-to-one exchange. It is a systemic liquidation of a rival's balance sheet. The tank becomes a multi-million-dollar liability, hunted by an adversary whose losses are financially negligible. This economic disparity creates what is known as the democratization of violence. Lethality is no longer the exclusive domain of capital-intensive state militaries. The barrier to entry for projecting debilitating force has collapsed. With minimal investment, non-state actors or rival powers can deploy swarms of expendable assets to degrade high-value infrastructure. This applies to kinetic attacks on armor, cyber attacks on civilian systems like the AZ Monica Hospital in Belgium, or environmental disruption. The goal is the same: impose unsustainable costs on the defender. The result is a forced solvency crisis. A nation-state cannot sustain a defense against an enemy with an infinitely scalable and economically trivial offense. It's a mathematical certainty. Every defensive action, no matter how successful, contributes to a net economic loss, accelerating the journey to national bankruptcy. For a nuclear-armed power facing this induced insolvency, the launch-on-warning protocol shifts. The nuclear option ceases to be a deterrent of last resort. It becomes the final, logical transaction to exit an unwinnable economic war. The primary battlefield is no longer geographic, it is systemic. We call these staging grounds the gray zone, regions selected not for conquest, but as laboratories. These are territories where state capacity is deliberately degraded to test asymmetric weapons. Regional instability is not the cause. It is the desired outcome of a successful field test. According to analysts at RUSI, these are live-fire exercises for systemic collapse. Consider the cyber vector. The shutdown of the AZ Monica Hospital in Belgium was not random vandalism. It was a low-cost probe to calibrate the exact dosage of disruption required to paralyze civilian critical infrastructure. The objective is to quantify the societal breaking point and the economic liability of a shutdown, creating a blueprint for replication on a national scale. It is a calculated stress test on a nation's solvency. Simultaneously, environmental accelerants are weaponized. The accelerating melt in the Arctic, noted in recent climate reports, is being treated as a strategic opportunity. It unlocks new sea lanes and resource deposits. This transforms locations like Greenland from remote territories into geopolitical choke points. A prime minister's warning, as reported by the New Republic, is not political theater. It is a declaration of position in a zero-sum contest for future resource liquidity. These vectors are designed to converge. A political disruption in one proxy laboratory triggers a solvency crisis in a primary target. Euromaidan press analysis confirms this blueprint. A regime change in Iran would be engineered to crash global oil prices. This is not a side effect. It is a targeted economic weapon designed to degrade Russia's financial capacity to sustain kinetic operations. It is a direct attack on the adversary's balance sheet. The gray zone is where the launch-on-warning protocol is being rewritten. Instead of missile detection, the trigger is an algorithm confirming terminal insolvency. These proxy laboratories are perfecting the art of pushing a nuclear-armed state to a point where its only remaining asset is its strategic arsenal. This isn't a strategy of defeat. It's a strategy of liquidation. The mathematical certainty is that a state facing bankruptcy does not surrender. It escalates. The launch-on-warning protocol is not an act of aggression. It is a mathematical function designed to solve a single problem: the kinetic cost of a successful first strike. According to defense analysts at RUSI, the doctrine mandates a retaliatory launch the instant early warning systems detect incoming hostile missiles. This ensures a state's deterrent capability is not neutralized in its silos, guaranteeing mutual destruction. The protocol's logic is absolute, designed to remove human hesitation from the critical path of national survival. This protocol, however, has a systemic vulnerability. It presumes the integrity of the data from its warning systems. A cyber attack vector, such as the one that shut down servers at the AZ Monica Hospital in Belgium, demonstrates the blueprint for weaponized disruption. An adversary does not need to fire a missile. They only need to blind the system that looks for them. The target is not the hardware. It is the data, the certainty. This creates the fog of digital war. When the radar screens go black, the commander is faced with a binary choice under extreme time compression. Is this a network failure, or are nuclear assets inbound, hidden by a digital smokescreen? CSIS analysis confirms that in this state of induced blindness, the launch-on warning protocol defaults to the worst-case scenario. The fear of total asset liquidation forces a launch based on the absence of data. The cyber attack makes escalation not just possible, but a logical, pre-programmed certainty. The blueprint for systemic attack requires testing. Before a solvency crisis is fully engineered, adversaries require data on response protocols and breaking points. This is not achieved through kinetic strikes. The cost is too high and attribution too clear. It is achieved through calibration shots, limited, deniable disruptions of critical infrastructure designed to measure systemic fragility. Recent history provides the tactical template. The shutdown of the AZ Monica Hospital in Belgium via cyber attack was not a random act of digital vandalism. It was a field test. It established a baseline for penetrating non-military, soft targets with high social and logistical impact. According to CSIS analysis, these are rehearsals for asymmetric economic warfare. Therefore, the next logical event is a scaled-up calibration shot. Within the next 12 months, anticipate a coordinated cyber event targeting a Tier 2 European container port, not Rotterdam, but a vital secondary hub like Antwerp or Valencia. The vector will not be a shutdown, but a data integrity attack, silently corrupting manifests, container locations, and customs declarations for 72 hours. The event will be attributed to a non-state actor and dismissed as a sophisticated ransomware incident. The direct financial cost will be minimal. The true deliverable is intelligence, measuring the EU's response time, the cascading failure rate in its supply chain, and its political threshold for escalation. It is a bloodless, attribution-impossible maneuver to gather targeting data for a future solvency attack.